everyone, welcome to Daily Dictation. This is an interactive video and it has an activity that is meant to help you practice your English skills. This week we're looking at the topic of friendships and social relationships, and this video is for high intermediate English speakers. So in this video, you are going to participate in an activity, so make sure you have a paper and pencil or a blank document to type into. You are going to practice your listening skills and your writing skills. So to do that, I am going to read 5 sentences to you, and you are going to write down each sentence exactly how you hear it. This means that you are going to apply the correct grammar, the correct punctuation, spelling, and capitalization. After you write down these 5 sentences, I am going to show the answers, and then I will explain some of the grammar that you see in the sentences. I'm going to explain the spelling of tricky words and any kind of tips and tricks that will help you. And after that, I'm going to go through a list of relatively advanced vocabulary. So you know what vocabulary words that you can use to expand your own range, and the ones that are going to sound really good if you want to use it for IELTS speaking, or any other kind of proficiency exam that you have. This skill that we're doing here is also really good if you're going to do a proficiency exam, because listening skills and being able to take notes in English as you listen is essential for those exams. So join me for daily dictation Monday to Friday so you can practice this skill every day and master it. There are new sentences each weekday, new topics each week, and 2 English levels offered. The instructions: you will need a blank piece of paper and a pencil. 5 sentences will be read, and each sentence will be read 3 times and 1 more time at the end. You have to write down each sentence exactly how you hear it, and you will use your listening skills to do this. Try your best to apply the correct spelling, punctuation, and capitalization. So here is our task. You can see on the screen there are numbers 1 to 5. Each number represents a different sentence that I will read. So I'm going to start with sentence number 1. Number 1. As they shared their experiences, their fellowship grew stronger. As they shared their experiences, their fellowship grew stronger. As they shared their experiences, their fellowship grew stronger. Number 2. Although their acquaintance began at work, it quickly grew into a mentorship that improved both their lives. Although their acquaintance began at work, it quickly grew into a mentorship that improved both their lives. Although their acquaintance began at work, it quickly grew into a mentorship that improved both their lives. Number 3. Her affectionate actions made her approachable, while her trustworthiness earned the respect of her friends. Her affectionate actions made her approachable, while her trustworthiness earned the respect of her friends. Her affectionate actions made her approachable, while her trustworthiness earned the respect of her friends. Number 4. In times of crisis, their solidarity was obvious. In times of crisis, their solidarity was obvious. In times of crisis, their solidarity was obvious. Number 5. While he valued their mentorship, he also appreciated her empathy. While he valued their mentorship, he also appreciated her empathy. While he valued their mentorship, he also appreciated her empathy. While he valued their mentorship, he also appreciated her empathy. I'm going to read each sentence one more time, starting with sentence number 1. Number 1. As they shared their experiences, their fellowship grew stronger. Number 2. Although their acquaintance began at work, it quickly grew into a mentorship that improved both their lives. Number 3. Her affectionate actions made her approachable, while her trustworthiness earned the respect of her friends. Number 4. In times of crisis, their solidarity was obvious. Number 5. While he valued their mentorship, he also appreciated her empathy. So there are our 5 sentences. Now I'm going to get ready to show you the answers. If you found that was a little bit too fast or hard to get, I recommend that you listen again at a slower speed. You can adjust the speed in the settings of the video. Or if you need to listen to specific sentences again, just check the description for timestamps, and this will help you listen to specific sentence numbers. Now we're going to get ready to check our answers, starting with number 1. As they shared their experiences, their fellowship grew stronger. So as we see, if we're just looking at this here, we can see that we have 2 clauses. This is one clause. This is another clause. This one starts with a conjunction. And so we know that this is a dependent clause. Then after that, we have a subject and verb. Subject and verb right in the middle, which kind of is a signal that there is a new clause, and this one actually is an independent clause. We know that because it's an idea that can stand by itself. If this was just a sentence, it was a capital T and then a period, that would make sense by itself. We don't really need this part. However, if you had a sentence that said, as they shared their experiences, and that was it, well, it sounds like you're missing information there. So we know that that one's dependent and this one's independent for that reason. And because we're starting with dependent and we have our conjunction, we do need a comma. After, like we've mentioned in other videos, if the clauses come in a different order, the independent is first and the dependent is second, then you don't need the comma anymore, which is why it's so difficult to remember putting in the comma. So you really have to identify, is this dependent or not at the beginning? Otherwise, I think hopefully the spelling is not too bad. We do have our possessive adjective here in both cases. So make sure that you're spelling it T-H-E-I-R and not getting it mixed up with the other theirs, T-H-E-R-E or T-H-E-Y'-R-E, because those ones have different meanings and different functions in a sentence. We want to make sure that we're using the right one. Experiences, hopefully we do know the spelling of this one, but it can be a little bit confusing because there's so many E's. So if you want to split it up, experience, and then this S is here because it is plural. So if you split it up, experience, like that, that might be easier for you to remember the letter order when it's in smaller bits. And don't forget that fellowship does have a double consonant. It has a double L right there. Let's look at the next sentence. Although their acquaintance began at work, it quickly grew into a mentorship that improved both their lives. Okay. Again, we're seeing 2 clauses here. This is one and the next one that follows. And in this first clause that we see, we are starting with a conjunction. So that tells us that we're probably going to need a comma. We're going to need a comma before the subject, verb, object. So when we have a subject, verb, object kind of structure in the middle of a sentence, sometimes we know that, hey, maybe before we go into this, we do need a comma. Not always. You have to look at other kind of clues in the sentence, like this one has a conjunction here. So that's a pretty good indicator that we have a conjunction. Okay, we have the word work at the end, and it's a noun here. And so we are going to start subject, verb, object. Okay, before we say it, we do need the comma. So that is our clue. Acquaintance is a tricky word to spell. Split up AC, then quaint. You can either put the split up here or here. Acquaintance or acquaintance. It's up to you how you want to split it up, whatever is easier for you. But the reason that I separate the AC from the QU is because sometimes these make similar sounds. And so people oftentimes when they're writing a word like this, they either forget the C or forget the QU. And the QU is less likely to be forgotten because it's a little bit more unique and it stands out to us. But if you've never seen the word before and you're just sounding it out, then you're probably not going to put the QU. So to memorize it or to become more comfortable with it, split it up in these smaller bits so you can remember all of the letters in the letter order. And then also, hopefully this was okay, lives. We are not putting lives. Some people spell like this, and that's not correct because the plural version of this noun has a V. Lives do this. Other words that follow this kind of irregular noun form is shelves, elves, leaves, like that. So we don't like to put F-E-S. We like to put V-E-S because it sounds better and it's more correct. Number 3, her affectionate actions made her approachable while her trustworthiness earned the respect of her friends. So for this one, we're starting with an independent clause. Because if I just put a period here and I imagine that this whole part didn't exist, that would make perfect sense. It can stand alone just like that. The grammar's perfect in it. It doesn't seem like it's missing any information. That's great. But in this one, if I had, while her trustworthiness earned the respect of her friends, if I had only that by itself, it seems like I'm missing information because this word while is here and we don't really know why it's there. So that one is a dependent clause because it can't stand alone because it doesn't make any sense by itself. Here we have the independent clause first. We have a conjunction in the middle. And then we have a dependent clause second. And that's why we actually don't have any comma here. Let's see, I'll erase that. There's no comma here. And that's why. So we have independent first, conjunction in the middle, dependent second, which is different from the first two sentences, which is why here we have a comma, but here we don't. Again, we've seen the words affectionate and trustworthiness before, and the spelling could be a little bit tricky. For this one, just remember it's A, not E. That's where most of the mistakes come from. And this one is just very long. So split it up into 4 bits. Making sure that you isolate the I like we talked about before. That way, when you say it, you emphasize the I when it's by itself. And that is correct because that is the stress syllable in the word there. Another tricky word might have been approachable. So it's up to you how you want to split it up. You can do approach able, and this is what I do. I always, whenever I have a double consonant, if I can, I split one consonant up in one section and another up in another section. Otherwise, sometimes it's forgotten and you will only put one P when that's not correct. So I like to split up those consonants and put them in different sections when I'm spelling out smaller sections of a big word, because it helps make sure that no letters are left or forgotten, especially when there's double consonants, because sometimes you can't always hear that there's double consonants. Let's look at sentence number 4. In times of crisis, their solidarity was obvious. So in this case, we have an introductory phrase that has a preposition and then a noun to give more information about the time. And so in that case, after I give the information about the time, then I am going to put a comma as after this introductory phrase. And their solidarity was obvious. In this case, we have a subject, verb, adjective. So because this flows perfectly, it shows us that we probably do need a comma before this SV adjective structure continues on. Now, in terms of spelling, obvious is kind of a hard word to spell sometimes because a lot of people don't put the B. So obvious, I used to split it up like this because it was easier for me to remember that there is an OB first and then a V afterwards. Otherwise, a lot of people would forget either the B or the V. This is especially tricky if your first language is Spanish because as far as I know, that B and V sometimes sound really, really similar and it's hard to differentiate those letters. So if you split them up in English, it might be easier to remember that there's two of those in the word. Now let's look at our final sentence for today. Number 5, while he valued their mentorship, he also appreciated her empathy. We are starting with a conjunction here, which tells us that this first clause, probably dependent, and after the dependent clause, when that comes first, we do need a comma. And now we have subject, verb, object of the sentence. We have that SVO structure that starts right in the middle of the sentence there. So that tells us that before we have that subject, we probably do need a comma, and this is the independent clause here. So dependent, independent, we know that starts with a conjunction. We have SVO on this side. So before the S, we put the comma. And so that is our sentence breakdowns. Appreciated for spelling might be tricky. I would split it up in the same way that you did approachable. AP, appreciated, like that if you want. It's up to you how you want to split it up, but I find those smaller bits are easier. So these are some spelling tips and tricks as well as the grammar breakdown of these sentences. You'll notice that we have some bold words. Those are the words that we're focusing on this week that show that if you're able to use and understand these words, that you have a wider range of vocabulary, and this is good for vocabulary building. So if these words are new to you, they are good for this topic. Write them down and get to know them. I'll give you a better list of them. So here's the list of words. We have empathy, trustworthy, affectionate, supportive, solidarity, acquaintance, fellowship, mentorship. Make sure you know the different forms of these words, how to use them in different sentences, the grammar associated with the different forms. Feel comfortable with them in speaking and in writing and spelling, because if you're able to use these in day-to-day English, or you're able to use them for a proficiency exam, it shows that you have a very good range of vocabulary, which is a big part of proficiency exams. So practice that. Besides that, thanks for watching this video. Please continue to practice your English. Please do the best that you can, and I'll see you next time. Bye.